my view is that obviously a year is too short a time to really say whether the government is doing a good job or a bad job. So I prefer to talk about a framework for assessing performance and to see whether that framework will guide us towards a future view as we go along the next 4 years of assessing whether this is a good performance by the government. I will use the NPP Manifesto as my case history, my case study for addressing some of the big questions that I have. And then I'll end with a few suggestions about how I think we can go through and break through the 7 to 8% growth ceiling that I think the Ghanaian economy seems to have. I titled my presentation, Can Flawed Policy Creation Morph into Great Results? And I have to say from the get-go that I have a pretty contrarian view to looking at these performance issues. The first thing that I wouldn't do is to get trapped in the numbers game. Numbers are important, but the British statesman, 19th century statesman, Disraeli, said there are 3 kinds of lies. Lies, damned lies, and statistics. And based on that, you know, when we go down the numbers trail, we have to ask ourselves, what is the reference? Is it MPP1? Is it NDC? Is it the Asian tiger? And we can spend all day arguing about which ones of these is the right reference for assessing performance. Do we really have the time? Do we really have the stomach for doing this? I would say, let's eschew trees. Let's look at these numbers as the trees in the forest. Look at the forest. Is it healthy? Is galamsey devastating the forest? I would say create analytical models rather than focus on statistical cherry picking. Is this apparent success the result of economic growth or financial engineering? Are these one-time events or are these multi-year gains? Are we dealing with human development index matters or just a narrow focus on the economic data? So let's step back if we're going to do what CDD said we should do, look at the status quo ante versus what's happened in the process. Oh, apparently I'm speaking. So if you look at the NPP Manifesto and you look at Nana's opening statement in it, Nana's covenant to the Ghanaian people is an alleviation, and I quote, of pain and sufferings. And he cites a few examples. I won't go through all of them. So he cites the example of the farmer who struggles to feed his family and has sent his children to school. And after making that sacrifice, will his children even be able to get a job at the end of their studies? By the mother of the sick child who has to walk miles on the dusty road to be turned away because the clinic will not accept NHIS card and she has no money to pay, and on and on and on. These stirring words won an election, and if you'll notice one thing about them, they are couched in Human Development Index terms. How do these Ghanaians feel today about how the president has done? I think is the germane question that needs to be addressed. So I will use the NPP's own manifesto. Now, this is a bipartisan approach, but since we're discussing NPP, I'll use NPP examples. My critique, my framework equally applies to the NDC process as it does to the NPP process. So the NPP in the manifesto declares that to achieve our objectives, our principal economic policy direction will be to A, restore macroeconomic stability, shift the focus of economic management from taxation to production, manage the economy competently, make the machinery of government work to deliver the benefits of progress to Ghanaians. The question at the end of the first year is how far? Are these the right priorities? What picture of the economy is the government looking at? They go on further to say that there are 3 levers by which they hope to accomplish this. One of these levers, the monetary lever, is within the ambit of the central bank. So let's put that aside for a minute and look at what the NPP says it will do. It will restore fiscal discipline and financial stability. Again, the question here is how far? Are these the right priorities? What picture of the economy is government looking at? Again, they say, in terms of fiscal policy, the implementation, I can't go into all of the issues, but I just do like a branching tree till we get to some answers. In terms of fiscal policy, they ask, or they state in the manifesto, as it stands now, lacks 3 basic elements. I believe that these are the foundational elements for moving their policy issues forward. These 3 elements are a transparent institutional arrangement for providing quality fiscal information to the public, a mechanism for ensuring accountability in implementing optimal fiscal policies to guarantee the stability of the system, an institution to ensure credibility of fiscal projections provided by government. Now, one of the first observations I make is, why does the government need an institution to ensure that its own projections are credible? Perhaps, we need to evaluate whether they're credible, but not to ensure that they're credible. And again, we ask ourselves, how far? Where are we? If these are the fundamental issues that will enhance or detract from policy creation, where are we? So I would say that policy implementation failure begins at the manifesto creation level. These manifestos are formidable undertakings. The NPP manifesto weighs in at 160 pages of text and images. It's impressive in its breadth of coverage, but it's pretty shallow in the depth of prescriptions. Ghanaian manifestos essentially are political documents. They're aimed at getting votes by promising something to everyone, but they end up making everyone unhappy. I've been close to the political process for the last 10 years, and I've got insider information about the 2012 manifesto, the NPP manifesto, which has been described as the work of party thought leaders. But the process lacked serious, disinterested intellectual input and heft. This process, I submit, will lead to broad 110 ministers, but shallow governance. We need narrow focus, but depth in critical areas. So let's come back to what the jury has said. This is the farmer and the mother. At the end of this 1 year, what will they say? I think, to me, that's a critical audience. Now, a number of the things Charles has looked at tell us the government started off with a weak hand that is trying to play the best it can. The best thing the NPP government has going for it, I would submit, is that it followed an NDC government, which was notoriously bad at economic management. So it almost seems as if anything else that we do now should be an uptick of where we need to be. As if we went down, we'll be in serious trouble. So I think today the jury is still out, but if we're forced to have our jury of the people that Nana spoke to at the beginning of the manifesto to speak to the issue, they probably would conclude that the economy is being competently managed. But I'm sure they would even also say that, but we've seen very few innovative, sustainable solutions going forward. So how do we move beyond promise and underachieve? I would say that we need to discipline the manifesto production process, because this is really what is a referent for the government on how it's to go forward. So go narrow and deep. Let's discipline governance. Let's understand that sustainable growth is the answer. Let's really set up government metrics for measuring attainments. Let's insist on all-around meritocracy, not patronage politics. Let's think new things. When I say let's think of the Ministry of Informality, I don't mean the way I'm dressing today. Let's really acknowledge that the majority of the Ghanaian economy is an informal economy. And there should be a ministry ported around understanding how this economy works and how it can grow. Let's think new. Let's think about capital creation, not moving Accra, but how do we remove the stumbling block to innovation, which a lot of it is capital. So I'll end here. I would say, arguably, Leonard is a visionary leader. His thoughts about going beyond the gadgets-based economy and beyond aid represent startling breakthrough visions. But does the first year represent visionary advances? Thank you.